What's going on, guys? Welcome back to TheTranq, and today I'm going to be going over a pretty simple build, but still a cool build that I was doing, a shelf to get some of my 3D printing supplies organized. So let's just go ahead and dive in. First thing I did here was go ahead and rip down a large sheet of 3/4 inch ply. Actually, it might be 1/2 inch plywood, I can't even remember at this point. But basically this shelf is a really simple design. It's just a couple of rabbet joints and things like that. But the cool thing is I'm building it around one of the wall control pegboard systems, which will allow me to have a lot of versatility in kind of how I organize the shelf in the future. So to get started here, I'm just using the crosscut sled to cut some of these pieces to length. And it's always tricky, I think, to get these pieces to be the same length because you can't set up a stop block, at least I can't on the crosscuts that I have. So you kind of have to just measure and do it as close as you can. Now what I'm doing here is getting set up for the rabbits, and to do that I'm just setting up a little fence, squaring it along the board, and then using the palm router to put in a dado here. Excuse me, not a rabbit. And this goes pretty easily. I just do it in one pass, no problem there. And again, you want to make sure you're offsetting your dado the exact same length on each board, because these are going to be the sides that accept the shelves. So here you can see they line up on the top, but I did make a mistake on the bottom. I actually used the wrong dimension at first. I forget how that mistake happened, but that was kind of a dumb mistake to make. So luckily this could be accounted for by just cutting off the bottom, and then they're each a bit shorter now, but at least they match up. So here I laser cut a template for the curve that I'm putting on the top. I have access to a makerspace around me, which is where I go and laser cut. And I go ahead and rough cut that template curve with the jigsaw, which really leaves a very poor result with plywood. You can see there's a lot of tear out there along the grain. So yeah, it's really not great. That's why I always leave it to flush trimming with a router, because that'll give me a much cleaner profile. So to do that, I'm just using a bit of CA glue and some blue tape, and you can just pretty easily do that and use a flush trim bit on the router and just get that cut. And I always love this part because you take a really terrible looking profile and 1 minute later you have a really nice looking curve. So next thing I'm doing is, before I get to the glue up here, is I'm just giving everything a good sanding. I really like using the pencil to kind of put out a grid line for the sanding to make sure you're not doing any high or low spots. And then because I won't be able to do this easily after, I'm just applying some edge banding here. And I don't know, the way I do this, I go across once with the iron and sort of put it on somewhat, and then I come back with a pressure roller, or a mallet in this case, and I just really make sure it goes on there nicely. I'd say the most annoying thing about it is actually getting rid of all the excess. You kind of have to just come through with a razor or something and trim it all up. But you do end up with pieces of turning a piece of plywood from plywood into, at least it looks decent. So next thing I'm doing here is I'm just using a Forstner bit to put in some holes, and these are going to be accepting a long dowel, which will help keep the spools of filament in place. And I'd be sure to put a piece of tape here on the bottom to reduce tear out, because that's something I'll always get with plywood on the drill press. Now here comes the main kind of glue up of the carcass, and I get some extra hands here because the first time I did it, everything ended up falling down. It's kind of a stressful glue up. Now at this point I realized I needed to make some cauls that are going to be able to accept the pegboard. So what I do is I just get some scrap pieces of pine, cut them to rough length. I like to get rid of the saw marks and such with a plane. It leaves you with a really nice edge. And then I just cross cut those to be the same length. And basically what I'm doing here is, if you look at the plans, there's actually a slight mistake in the measurements I made. And so all this is a caul that's going to accept that metal pegboard, when originally it was going to be connected to the carcass of the box. Now it's going to be going under these cauls. So here I'm countersinking a few holes just to help me get a nice hole. So when I clamp it, now I've got a nice reference for the drill bit to go into. And I just attach these cauls to the inside of the carcass, and with the countersunk holes, it leaves a pretty neat profile, and you won't be seeing it either way. Alright, next thing I'm doing here is just cutting some 1/4 inch plywood for the back. Now, I would recommend using 1/2 inch or even 3/4 if you have it. I didn't have any, and I was kind of just trying to use scraps for this project, so I just cut a piece of 1/4 inch. But basically I just cut that to size and tacked that onto the back. No special rebate or anything for that to go into, and this helps, you know, give it a little bit more strength to the overall structure. But again, 1/2 inch or 3/4 on the back would be a lot better to do. And then here I'm just going over all those, you get, once you put the edge banding on, you get a lot of sharp little edges on everything. And so I like to come through and make sure I knock all the edges, at least slightly round them over, and that helps, it gives it a much better feel. And while I'm at it, I just sand all the tricky spots to get to. Now before I get to any finish, first thing as always, I just go over everything with some mineral spirits. Now that's it, that's literally the build portion is complete. I mean, like I said, it's a really simple shelf, but I always tell people the cool thing about being able to make your own furniture and things like this is that you can make it to exactly fit your needs. And you'll see that as I go and put this where it's going to be going here. You'll see that it really fits the space perfectly, and it also fits the items it's going to be carrying perfectly. So here I've got the metal pegboard. This is wall control pegboard. If you didn't see my last video, I'll put a link here. I redid my workbench area with an all new pegboard and painting. It looks really great, and so be sure to check that out and check out Wall Control's products. I really love using their pegboard because there's a lot of awesome attachments. You can really just customize it to however you want it. So with the finish on and the pegboard on, I go ahead and just put that dowel in. So you can see on the bottom rack there is where spools of filament are going to be going. And at this point, this is a few coats of the finishes on, and it's looking pretty nice. It's got a bit of a sheen to it, which I kind of like with the metallic pegboard. So here I bring it up into the space, and I don't know exactly at this point what I'll be putting on the pegboard, so I just, you know, get a small shelf attachment and screwdriver attachment, that sort of thing, and just hook them on. Of course, as time goes on, I'll see what I want to put here. So on the bottom shelf here is where I'm going to be putting all these extra spools of filament, and the dowel helps just keep that in place. And one other cool thing I decided to do is I've been working on making a display case that you can use with just laser cut and 3D printed components, because you can make these to custom fit whatever size you want. So here I'm just putting together one of the ones that I made. So I designed these, and you can check this out on my Thingiverse if you want to make one yourself. But you can see you can size it to fit exactly what you're going to be putting into display. And so in this case, I'm putting in one of these metal earth that I'm put together of C3PO and R2D2. And in the back, you can see a couple other metal earths and another custom display case that I made. So these display cases are really cool. They're completely dust proof, which is the whole point of them. And you can also, you can see you can slide the top on there, so you can access what's in there. So this is just a little plug for checking out my designs. I was really happy with how these display cases came out. So if you want to put one of these together, check out the links. All you need is a bit of hardware and to 3D print the parts. So with that, I put on some of the decor here, as you might call it, some cool 3D prints that I've done. There's a pump that I modeled a couple years ago, and that's it. So pretty simple build today, but I was happy with how it turned out. It was just how I was picturing it. And so if you enjoyed this, be sure to check out my other videos and subscribe to the channel. Got lots more content coming, guys. We'll see you on the next one.